Happy Wednesday, folks, and welcome to episode 431 of AskGSM here today for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. I am Graham GSM Matthews. Hope you guys are doing well and having a great month of March so far. If you want to send in a question to the show, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.GSM.Matthews. Drop a comment on the post that I usually put up on Tuesday nights, if not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video. I'll include your question in next week's edition. Without further ado, let's get right into it, starting with Joe M. from YouTube. Their first question was, thoughts on the news of EC3's Control Your Narrative promotion so far? Listen, I like EC3. From what I have seen so far from Control Your Narrative, CYN as people are calling it, as I tweeted out on Monday, a screenshot of someone asked CM Punk something about Control Your Narrative, and obviously he's not involved, but they asked him something about the promotion, and then he kind of responded saying no thanks or whatever, clearly indicating he has no interest in getting involved with it, supporting it, whatever. From what I understand so far, as far as who's involved with it, him and Braun Strowman, now known as Adam Shearer's real name, the Titan, are the people heading up this promotion. We kind of got a a small look at what it's supposed to be with what EC3 did at the Ring of Honor Final Battle pay-per-view in December, because Strowman showed up on that show, the former Wesley Blake from from WWE, the Forgotten Sons in NXT. He's going to be involved, I think. I haven't seen that officially announced yet, but, he's buddy-buddy with those guys. Karrion Kross, I believe, might be involved. I know Flip Gordon officially got announced. Austin Aries officially got announced. The kind of the trend here, no pun intended, because I know EC3 likes to use that word, the trend, follow the trend, or maybe that's Matt Taven, I forget. But Aries, Gordon, unfortunately, are not the most well-liked individuals amongst the wrestling fans, whatever. Kind of polarizing with some of the stuff they said publicly, some of the stuff they definitely have done, have been accused of. Specifically in the case of Aries, these are guys that I've been a fan of in the past, but as far as in-ring ability, both guys are very good. You would think on paper, oh wow, that's a great get for this promotion. And I want to say quote-unquote promotion because it sounds like it is indeed an actual promotion. But what the fuck this is supposed to be, I have no idea. Any and all buzz they've gotten so far, and people know of the promotion, so it's more than what I can say for any of the other upstart promotions, quote-unquote, from years past that people will start up and try to get going, and then it goes nowhere, no one's talking about it, and no one gives a shit after a while, if they ever really gave a shit to begin with. At least Control Your Narrative, to their credit, has people talking. It's not a good type of talking. The stuff that I have seen worded in press releases and on their Twitters and stuff, the way that it's worded and the stuff they're talking about doesn't give me a lot of confidence. It's not a promotion I would regularly follow anyway. And you want to see any promotion succeed and do well because it's better for the wrestling business. I don't really see it going anywhere. To me, so far, from what it sounds like, they're taking talent that don't really have many other opportunities anywhere else, and they're bringing them to one promotion. And that's one way of wording it, but by that I mean people that other major companies don't want to touch because they feel they might be too toxic, might be too strong of a term, but might be too polarizing, like an Aries, for example, a guy that I've been a fan of in the past. Everywhere he has worked, seemingly he has burned bridges. I don't know the guy personally, but he went to WWE, he got fired. He was in and out of Impact. His most recent run there didn't end on the best of terms. Ring of Honor, he went back to briefly a few years ago, but he hasn't been back since, which is a little odd to me. He was in MLW for a little while. Apparently, I would assume that didn't end well because he hasn't been back. NWA, he showed up in recently, and they don't really employ the greatest of people like Tyrus, who's a fucking piece of shit. I wouldn't put too much stock in the NWA as far as that stuff goes. So I wouldn't be surprised if Tyrus gets involved with this whole NWA. He's in the NWA. With this whole Control Your Narrative thing at some point. It doesn't really sound like the greatest idea on paper from what I've heard. I have interviewed EC3. He's a very nice guy. I like EC3, but from what I've seen so far, it's not the most encouraging. The whole rant room thing just sounds fucking stupid to me. It's interesting. It's different, I guess, but I had seen people say, and they were right in that, essentially for anyone who doesn't know what it is, and I had seen EC3 tweet about this on Monday and other people sharing it, that you can like yell at a wrestler like whatever you want, which seems a little odd. Like I don't know if you can yell obscenities and stuff like that, which I would hope not. Like how far are we actually going here? You know what I mean? Like, did they say? I don't want people like yelling slurs and stuff like that. That would just be a little weird to me. That might be offensive and just kind of defeats the purpose, I would assume. But so you can go in a room and rant at someone, yell at any wrestler for 3 minutes, and it says you can be accountable as opposed to being a keyboard warrior, as they say. But it's not like the wrestler is going to beat them up or say anything back. They just get to yell at him for 3 minutes, and that's it. And the wrestler just sits there and takes it. It was fucking weird when I read that. I'm like, okay. So again, they got people talking. I wouldn't exactly say it's the right type of talking. People might just check out their first show to see how much of a shit show it is. I'm curious to see who else they might get. It seems like Karrion Kross is buddy-buddy with those guys. I could see him showing up there. So I guess time will tell. I know Ciampa's very close with EC3, and I think Strowman too. Obviously, he's still involved with NXT, but I could see maybe if he were to get released or leave WWE, he would probably go there as well, because I'm pretty sure they're all very close. Moose as well. Moose was another one supporting the promotion. He is obviously the current Impact World Champion, so I don't know how much he can actually be involved anyway. People like that, so it'll be something to keep an eye on for sure. I'll say that much. It doesn't seem like, from what I've seen so far, that there's a lot of diversity involved with this thing, and again, I could be wrong. So far, there's not a lot of diverse folks involved, from what I understand. But you know what? More power to them. Hopefully it works out well, and hopefully this is all people making a big thing out of nothing. I would assume that's not the case. I would assume there's more to this as far as like what people are suspecting it's going to be. I don't have a lot of confidence, but we'll see where it goes. We haven't even seen it for a show yet. We don't really know the inner details, the inner workings of how this thing's going to go. To me, I don't see it being a big success. I see it fizzling out and failing, but that's the case with most promotions, so it's really nothing out of the ordinary there. Joe's second question here. Would Buddy Matthews have been better off taking a similar approach to Matt Cardona and going out and becoming a big name elsewhere before joining AEW? At least he's got direction immediately upon debut, but since he's not as big of a name as the likes of CM Punk or Bryan Danielson, I fear he might get lost in the shuffle similar to Jay Lethal or Tony Nese. The biggest difference, I would say, between Matthews and Lethal and Nese is that exactly what you said. Matthews, not to be mistaken with me, Buddy Matthews is coming in with direction. I was there last week. He got a big reaction. I don't know why people were chanting Murphy. That's not his name anymore. I would understand why they were chanting that, but if you know anything about anything, you probably knew that when he left WWE, he's not calling himself Murphy because that's like the WWE name, but he is calling himself Buddy Matthews. I forgot what his real name is, but he's using part of the WWE name and part of his real name from what I understand. So he's going to be Buddy Matthews in AEW. The biggest difference, like you said, is that he is coming in with direction. It's not like they're just debuting him for no reason. If they were to just bring in Matthews on his own and, like, for example, put him in the face of the Revolution ladder match, he would absolutely be lost in the shuffle. I have more confidence in a guy like, and it's not like a knock on ability for Buddy, but I would have more confidence in a Keith Lee coming in or even an Isaiah Swerve Scott coming in. Maybe a Cesaro. Maybe. I don't even think Cesaro should go to AEW right away. It would make for a great one-night reaction, but unless they're committed to actually pushing the guy, I don't think it's worth it for him to go to AEW, get this big shock reaction, oh, this guy was just on SmackDown a couple of weeks ago, and then go on to do nothing. Like, if he was in that face of the Revolution ladder match and he loses, what's next? What do you do with him? You can figure out stuff to do. They can find a spot for these people on the show. They can find things for people like Keith Lee and Isaiah Swerve Scott to do. It's a matter of whether they want to and who they're prioritizing. That's the thing to me. Cody being gone does open up a big spot because he was on TV quite a bit, and hopefully they can fill that spot with someone like a Keith Lee or an Isaiah Swerve Scott or a Cesaro if he were to come in. Buddy Matthews will not be a game changer out of the gate. He may not be a game changer at all, but he's an amazing in-ring talent. The guy is great, and I think you can utilize him properly if you use him in the right way. And I think this is the right way. Again, he's not coming in wrestling for the TNT title like Jay Lethal and then going on to do nothing. Jay Lethal, it's more of a mystery to me every fucking day why they even signed him. Again, I feel like it was, for him, it was like, oh, I want to capitalize off of being, it's funny because I know he said in interviews like, oh, I asked for my release early from Ring of Honor, because I knew when the free agents, like kind of when everyone from Ring of Honor entered free agency, it would be harder to stand out. But because he got released early, and he did make a big splash to an extent at Full Gear and the TNT title match, like, oh, it's a big shock. And then he wanted to do absolutely nothing. They have other people on that from Ring of Honor that have been on Dynamite and Rampage more than fucking Jay Lethal. I don't know about Danhausen quite yet, but he's appeared at least 2 or 3 times so far, probably on par with Lethal's on-air appearances. He hasn't even wrestled yet, and more people care about Danhausen than Jay Lethal. Tony Nese makes absolutely no sense. I don't know if I said this at the time on the air or not, but listen, he seems like a nice guy. I met him. He's a cool guy. To sign him seemed like an absolute fucking waste. He has been on nothing but dark. Lethal has wrestled more than Nese, but at least Lethal can be a contributor. I mean, I think with Nese, the guy was wrestling more on 205 Live than he ever has in AEW so far. Like, at least in WWE on 205 Live on a show that no one watches, at least he was wrestling every week. More people watch Dark than 205 Live, obviously, or did. But still, I just feel like Nese, with the guy that he is, he really lacks charisma. The whole ab thing is cool. Like, I've grown to become a fan of Tony Nese in recent years. To me, he's not as generic as he was 5 or 6 years ago. But on a roster where they already have so much fucking talent, you really do not need Tony Nese. They already have enough talent. They already have enough enhancement talent. They don't need Tony Nese. With Buddy Matthews, he's a good mid-card guy. He is a guy that at some point, if they push him properly, could be a TNT champion. For now, though, if they were to bring him on his own, he absolutely would get lost in the shuffle. But I think because, and listen, I'm not a big fan of like more stables. We need less stables in AEW. But I really like the idea of this trio of Malachi Black, Brody King, Buddy Matthews. Buddy has history with Malachi, obviously, from WWE. They have amazing chemistry. It makes sense. It's a nice little trio. The House of Black, maybe they'll add more members. I don't know. But, yeah, I don't know. I just really like the idea of those three being a faction, and so far, so good. They've been booked well. They've had great matches. Buddy joining the fray, to me, makes sense, and it's a good way to hopefully get him on the show in a regular role. So I have no issue with them hiring him. I have no issue with them putting him in that position on the show. Could he have benefited from doing something else beforehand? I mean, he went to New Japan briefly. I think he had a match with Okada. I think he did MLW briefly. I haven't seen him on the MLW show yet. I'm not sure if that was even televised, but, you know, would he have benefited to going to Ring of Honor first? I mean, there's not really a Ring of Honor right now, or going to an Impact. I think so. I think Impact would have been a perfect place for him to become like a great X Division champion. But you know what? That's his choice. He's probably making more money in AEW. It's going to be more exposure. That's fine. For example, I'm not even sure Tony Khan would have been interested. I don't think he ever really reached out to him from what I understand. But for example, a guy like Bronson Reed, I said this at the time. I think Bronson Reed, now known as Jonah, he's excellent. I think he's great, and he's doing great work right now in New Japan, and specifically in Impact. Him going to AEW as soon as he got released, he would have been lost in the shuffle even then. And that was before they signed all the people they have in the last 6 months. They're signing new people every fucking week. There's certain people you have a role for and certain people you don't. For example, bringing in Kyle O'Reilly on his own, really, I don't know if would have been much of a priority had it not been for Bobby Fish and Adam Cole already being there. Like, they're amazing, and you can put him with them, and it makes sense, and you could do Red Dragon, so that's a great role for him to be in. Does that make sense? So, like, that's why I think with Cesaro, that's why I think, I hope, honestly, like, if he shows up in AEW as Claudio Castagnoli or whatever, that's cool. But I just think he is a guy that would benefit from going to New Japan, taking the Matt Cardona route, going the Drew McIntyre route. I mean, they didn't have an AEW back in the day, but Cardona hasn't gone to AEW. I don't know if they even want him or did want him initially. I mean, I know he did a couple of appearances there, but that's about it. You know, doing stuff like that, going to New Japan, killing it in Impact. I think Cesaro and Impact, the talent they have there, would be fucking great. I would love to see that. Maybe doing a one-off of the Ring of Honor Super Card of Honor show in April. I would love to see any of that. So, I don't know if I don't think he made the wrong choice, did Buddy Matthews, but time will tell as far as how they handle the aftermath. I'm more worried about people like Keith Lee and Swerve at this point because they're coming in very likely on their own. They're coming in on their own, so there's more of a chance they get lost in the shuffle than a guy like Buddy Matthews, who's likely going to be involved in this House of Black stuff for a while. At Uwagu91, their first question was, with the reveal that Undertaker will not be the solo inductee of this year's WWE Hall of Fame, do you think he should have been? I do. I mean, I'm sure whoever else they induct this year will be worthy, whether it's a Michelle McCool, Mickey James, anyone, really. I'm not sure who else is even rumored. Usually we get a rumored list of names of who's going into the Hall of Fame. We haven't even gotten that. Taker was kind of just expected, but it wasn't like it was rumored, to my knowledge. It's not like people are saying for weeks, oh, Taker announcement coming any day now. No, people just thought that would be the case, but there wasn't an actual official rumor. So I don't know if they're keeping it close to the vest, or more likely they just have no fucking clue. We're a month out from Mania. By this point, they already have like 3/4 of the Hall of Fame class confirmed most years. This year, we don't know anyone. I think even last year, they waited till the last minute. But at least we had a decent idea of who was coming in. We have no fucking clue right now. So, yeah, it's weird. But I would have just had Taker going in by himself, especially since they're doing the Hall of Fame the way they are this year, with SmackDown being on the Friday of WrestleMania weekend. And whatever. I think Saturday, it's a 2-night Mania and SmackDown's on Friday. So it kind of eliminates the possibility of doing anything on Saturday or Friday. Like, that's why TakeOver Saturday morning. I don't love it, but that's what it is. With Taker, I think, if they're doing it after SmackDown, you don't want to have 7 inductees. They should keep the class small this year. They probably won't, but they should. I mean, SmackDown's a 2-hour show, and then to add on a fucking 7-hour Hall of Fame, which is how long it usually is, I think it's just stupid. So I just wouldn't do that. But I would have Taker going by himself. They should have centered the whole thing around him. It's not a big deal that they're not. I would have done that personally, but we'll see who else they induct and how they handle it. His second question here, do you like the idea of the women headlining night 1 of WrestleMania and the men headlining night 2? To me, the biggest match, I feel like the biggest match that you're looking forward to, you should keep people looking forward to, in the main event of the second night. And I think that's what they're doing this year. Of the 2 matches, not everyone's super high on them, and I totally get it, because Brock and Roman we've seen a million times, and Charlotte and Ronda, the feud is a little bit shaky right now. Of the 2 matches, Roman and Brock obviously is the bigger match because it's a unification match. So that should be night 2. I don't know why they're doing Becky and Bianca on night 1. You would think they would stretch out. I mean, I think John Ritland actually asked a question about this in a little bit, but you would think they would space it out a little bit better than putting the 2 top women's title matches on night 1. I think Becky and Belair should have been night 2, but maybe they have something else planned. I don't know. But yeah, I'm fine with the women being night 1 and the men being night 2. I mean, that's what it was last year. I think Sasha and Bianca had a great match, but the build was better for Roman, Edge, and Bryan. I was more excited for that match, and it was the better match of the 2, in my opinion. So I'm glad that went on night 2, and I think this year is the same thing. For example, if this was WrestleMania 35, which was the last one-night WrestleMania, if it was WrestleMania 35 and it was a 2-night Mania, I would have put Ronda, Becky, and Charlotte on night 2, because that was the biggest match. And hopefully it would have been better, because it wouldn't have been rushed, and it wouldn't have been at fucking midnight. But, you could have put on night 1 in the main event Rollins and Brock, or Kofi and Bryan, and that would have been fine. So it's not like the women should always be night 1 and the men should always be night 2. No, you got to go with the biggest match. For example, like if it was Becky and Ronda, I would say, they would probably still put it on night 1 because the men's match is a unification match, which automatically makes it bigger, even though apparently they're not going to actually unify the titles, which is stupid. And we'll get to that in a moment. But still, I think there would be a better case to be made for Becky and Ronda headlining night 2 over Roman and Brock than what it is currently with Charlotte and Ronda instead. So I'm fine with the layout. I do like the fact they're announcing the matches in advance. I think that's great. They didn't do that last year. I'm pretty sure we didn't know what match was main eventing until like each show started, which is just ridiculous. Because like you're selling tickets to this shit. Like you technically should probably advertise who's on what night. So I'm glad they're doing that this year. And they'll probably switch it. I'm sure they will. WWE has no fucking clue what they're doing on each night. Doesn't know what they're doing each day until the day begins, but until 20 minutes before showtime. But I would hope that this makes things more organized and more clear as far as what people are expecting on each night. His third question, do you think Thunder Rosa will beat Britt Baker for the AEW Women's World Championship this Sunday at Revolution? I'm going to say Baker. I think Baker should win. Rosa is the one to beat Baker, obviously. I'm kind of echoing other people's thoughts here, but I also believe they have not built the feud up enough. And I know that sounds silly. It's like, well, the feud's been going on for a year. How can it not be built up enough? They didn't really reignite the rivalry until recently. And what it felt like to me, and I'm a little disappointed they didn't do this, and I probably said this on the show last week, the feud, the way it was going, was not Britt and Thunder. That was not the central focus. They only got to that a week or two ago. The central focus of the storyline was Britt, Rosa, Jamie Hayter, and Mercedes Martinez. I don't know how you would explain getting all 4 in the championship match, because Mercedes, I don't think has won a televised match yet on AEW. But that's what I would have done, because I think that's the match to do, and Jamie Hayter's been teasing tension with Britt for many months now. Mercedes has now had issues with Baker, and she did have issues with Rosa. Now they're kind of allies. I guess they might be doing a tag team match tonight with those women, or on Rampage maybe. And, who's the other person? Britt and Rosa have their issues. So I think a 4-way would have made the most sense to me, and they're not doing that. If Rosa wins on Sunday, I'll be happy. I mean, she has to win either way. It would be an issue if she lost here and then they just moved on to someone else. That would be a problem. What I think they should do, though, is have Rosa win a Double or Nothing, or maybe on TV between now and Double or Nothing. I just don't feel like, as great as that contract signing was between the two on Rampage last week, I enjoyed it. I was there in person when they taped it for Dynamite in Bridgeport, at the Dynamite taping in Bridgeport. It just doesn't feel like, to me, the title changes now. And it's not their biggest show of the year. That's Double or Nothing, I would think. Maybe All Out, I don't know. We've had that conversation before, and it's kind of hard to come to a definitive answer there. But I don't know. I just think it would be better saved for another time and not on Sunday. Because remember, the last time they faced off, Rosa won. So you could tell the story if Baker cheats to win on Sunday. I don't know how you build to a rematch, but they could figure something out with their win-loss record shit. You could say Baker's beaten Rosa every time in a sanctioned match. Because remember, a lot of people forget, Baker previously beat Rosa at their Beach Break show. Not this past February, but last February. The one in February of 2021. So she beat her there. Rosa won the unsanctioned Lights Out rematch. But again, that was unsanctioned. So it didn't technically count, as they've brought up before. So Baker can say, listen, I've beaten you on the record every time we faced off. You can't beat me, technically. And then you build the title change either on TV in Texas, if they're there, which they are. They're going to be there between now and Double or Nothing, but it's in like a couple of weeks. It's really not that big of a difference. I would just wait till Double or Nothing. You could build up the feud a little bit more for Double or Nothing. I mean, they've had 4 months to build up this show. And it's a great show on paper, a great card on paper. I don't know why they didn't start the build to this sooner. It felt like they wasted a little bit too much time on the Mercedes Thunder Rosa stuff. And I like Mercedes Martinez a lot, but if she's not in the title match, no, I don't know why you would waste so much time building that up as opposed to this. So we'll see. I'll be happy either way. If Britt wins, that hopefully tells me they're going to extend the feud out a little further. And if they don't, and Rosa wins, then great. So to me, it's a win-win. Supersonic X 1991, their question was, do you think that unifying the championships or unifying the WWE and Universal titles will have some side effects? Because the last time WWE attempted that, it led to them not featuring any wrestlers on TV. I assume you're referencing the 2013 unification of the World Heavyweight and WWE titles. I mean, the whole they're not featuring anyone on TV, that was an issue even before they unified the championships. I mean, by that point, the brand split was dead. SmackDown was irrelevant. The show sucked for the better part of a couple of years there before the brand split was brought back. The World Heavyweight Championship meant absolutely nothing. At least, I mean, that was more necessary to do unification. At least now, they still have the brand split, for now anyway, and if they unify the titles for real, I mean, the whole idea of unifying the championships only to break them back up again and give each roster their own championship again is fucking stupid. It's stupid. And even if they've done it before, I've seen people say, oh, they did it in 2013 and then only to do it again a couple of years later. Yeah, because they brought back the brand split. And it was dumb in 2000. I mean, the same thing in 2001, they unified the championships. But again, same thing. They only did that because they had a brand split and they wanted the top title for each show. That to me makes sense. You got to book each world champion on the equal level. Roman is just a level above everyone else, including anyone who has held that WWE championship. But I just think I maintain that unifying the titles is a bad idea. If you maintain the brand split, and even with the amount of people that got released, they still have a pretty good roster. There's a lot of people who will not be in that main event scene. It'll be the Roman Reigns show 24/7. If you're sick of Roman now, and there are some people who are tired of the Roman Reigns thing, and I get it, you will be 10 times more sick of the guy after they unify the championships. In theory, could you have one world champion like AEW and make it work? Yes, because AEW is proof of that. You can make it work. And they have a huge roster as well. The problem is that WWE is not AEW. They would put whatever one world champion they have in the main event of every fucking segment, of every show, and you would be sick of them instantly. They won't build new stars. They're already not building new stars. There is a better chance of them creating new stars with this current system than there would be otherwise. I'm telling you right now, they created 0 fucking stars from the time they ended the brand split in 2011, 2012 through 2015 or 16. The Shield, that was about it. And even with the Shield, I mean, Dean Ambrose largely only got a world championship run because of the brand split. If they didn't have a brand split, Dean Ambrose probably wouldn't have been champion for as long as he was. Rollins and Roman were champion. Beyond that, though, what other stars did they create? How many other people were fresh faces that held the championship? Daniel Bryan? I guess, but that was kind of short-lived, and I don't think they were ever going to keep the title on him long-term anyway. John Cena was champion. Randy Orton was champion. Brock Lesnar was champion. Rollins was champion for a while, but again, that's about it. That's about it. So I would just say keeping the champ. Triple H was fucking champion. I mean, give me a break. I would say keep the belts separate. I know they're just doing this to make the main event look sexier on paper. Like, oh, let's do a unification, even though it's not an actual unification. I think it's dumb. I really do. I think getting rid of the brand split would also be dumb. I mean, honestly, it makes sense at this point because their roster has dwindled so much from what it was a year ago, but they still have enough of a roster left, and they have enough people down in NXT where you can call people up to help out SmackDown. SmackDown is completely depleted, but you can fix that. That can be fixed. To just concede defeat and then move on without the brand split is just lazy because there's things that you can do to fix it. That's what they do. They always take the easy route out. And then when that doesn't work, they go back to the brand split. I mean, that's just what they do. It's this ongoing, recurring cycle. It's ridiculous. But yeah, we'll see about the unification of the championships. It's going to have some side effects, as you said. It's going to be, I would assume it's going to be even more of a disaster than the current product is. I mean, at least Raw now is decent. SmackDown is not great at all. But, I mean, I think the shows would be even worse with one unified roster because look at the wildcard rule. The product from when they had that wildcard rule gives you a taste of what these shows would look like with no brand split. And those shows, as bad as some of the shows we see now are, were fucking terrible. SmackDown, I don't even remember what happened at that point. SmackDown was so irrelevant. I mean, they were pushing Shane goddamn McMahon at that point. They were overly pushing Roman Reigns. Kofi Kingston was the champion, so he was on all the shows. Daniel Bryan was on all the shows. Who else were they really getting over at that point? Nobody. So I don't really agree with they were pushing Dolph fucking Ziggler. I mean, come on, man. Give me a break. I just think getting rid of the brand split is a very bad idea, and getting rid of the two titles is also a bad idea. And it's even worse if they unify them only to break them up again. What's the point? Very stupid. At Kyle Rochelle 19, if Bianca Belair wins the championship at WrestleMania, people will be happy with it. Then in a year, if she's still champion, will people get bored of her like how people got bored of Becky Lynch as champion? What makes Bianca so different from Becky? Yeah, of course she'll get booed by some people, or people will get bored of her, because that's just how wrestling fans work. If you hold the championship, and listen, not everyone needs a 3-year reign as champion. No one needs that. But that being said, it's just, that's just how wrestling fans are. I mean, they get tired of things within a couple of months if someone's on top for a little while. People got sick of Drew when he was on top. He was a fresh face, did great work. It's not like he was in that position and he sucked or he didn't deliver. The guy had great matches and cut great promos. He delivered as a main event star, and he is a main event star. He's a cemented main event star. People got bored of him. People got bored of Becky. People get bored of Roman. They get bored of anything, and these people are doing great work. Not everyone who holds a championship for a year and a half is a great champion, in that you shouldn't be bored of them. But the people that have held championships for a long time, like the New Day, same thing. They were even doing great work towards the end there, their tag team title run, and they were champions for well over a year. People were getting bored of that. I mean, they like constant change. They like constant people on top. Bobby's been on top for a while. All right, we need someone new now. We need this person new. You can't have the new flavor of the month as champion every other month, because then it's going to get tiresome real quickly. And I feel like AEW it's just wrestling fans in general. It's the same thing. I mean, sometimes you got to switch things up, but like Adam Page, he's a boring champion. I mean, his title reign's been very underwhelming because of how they booked him. It's not an Adam Page issue. And it's not like Adam Page doesn't deliver in the main event position. So to say, we got to move on to someone new already. It's just, stop. Bianca would be the same thing. People were already bored of Bianca. I remember when Bianca was champion towards the end there before she lost the belt at SummerSlam, people were saying they were bored of her then. She didn't have the most amazing reign ever. She beat Bayley a bunch of times. She beat Carmella a bunch of times, and that was about it. But still, I thought she had a well-booked reign. She was booked well as champion. She had very good matches. What's the fucking problem? She's over. She's shown character development. She can talk. I mean, I just don't understand what the issue is. People just get bored because it's not something new. So Bianca would be no different. Becky is no different. I mean, some of the fans for these women's wrestlers just go fucking crazy. I mean, if Alexa Bliss or Bianca or Depending on who it is, I mean, they might get... I mean, Charlotte, I understand being bored of. I mean, she's been completely boring for quite a while now. Alexa, stop the music. Alexa, stop the music. Thank you. Jesus Christ. Every time I say Little Miss Bliss's name, the fucking shit goes off right next to me. This time I played the radio. But anyway, yeah, anytime any one of these women hold the championship, the swarm of haters come out. And I mean, with Alexa Bliss, her current character sucks, but she's still pretty good, and hopefully it doesn't go off again. Okay, it didn't go off again, thank God. I gotta just call her Bliss. Charlotte, again, same thing. It's like, hers is a little different because she has had a boring reign. But people just go after these women, and the men too. It's just wild. Oh, they're boring. Because they've been champion for 3 or 4 months. I mean, give me a fucking break. You got to get used to a certain thing. You can't have something new all the time. You got to stop getting bored of these people. If you like constant change, then wrestling's not the thing for you. Because people got to be champion for more than a couple of months. I mean, Bianca's not exempt to it. She is no different than Becky in that respect. People would still get sick of her if she was champion for more than 5 or 6 months. They would get sick of her within 3 months because that's how wrestling fans work. Very fickle. Daniel Bryan was not wrong. When he said in that promo 3 or 4 years ago that wrestling fans were fickle, he was not wrong. Next question from... let's see. At Reborn Again, John Ritland from the Twitter machine and on YouTube, Real Honesty with John Ritland, Real Honest Thoughts. Check out his show and channel. He does great work. Love John. His first question was, so most, if not all, of the matches involving the women are on night 1 of WrestleMania. Why don't they spread it out a bit? Like I said earlier, I completely agree. I don't know what night they announced Sasha and Naomi versus Queen Zelina and Carmella for, which is completely fucking random, by the way. I mean, it gets Sasha on the show, and Sasha and Naomi can be a great team because we've seen them in Team Bad together. It's just so fucking random. It's so beneath Sasha, it's ridiculous. And even Naomi, too, she's gotten herself to a point where she's so over. She's above the tag titles, but whatever, I guess. I don't know what night they announced that for, so... I mean, it just seems weird to me. Even if they do that in night 2, I really don't care all that much about that match. And even if they do like a women's WrestleMania Battle Royal again, which they haven't done in several years. They only did 2. They did one at 34 and 35. And that was it. 36, we had COVID, and last year they didn't do one. I don't think they did any... Oh, they did a Battle Royal for the men, for the Andre the Giant Memorial Battle Royal, but it was on SmackDown, not at WrestleMania. The SmackDown right before WrestleMania. It was basically their pre-show that year. But even if they do the Battle Royal on night 2 with the tag title match, that just doesn't exactly even out to me. Why would you do your top 2 title matches on night 1? I know one of them is main eventing, but that seems weird to me. They could always change it. They likely will because that's WWE for you. They probably shouldn't, though. They announced these matches for a certain night. People are buying tickets to some of these shows to see that one match. They might not be going to both nights because it can be expensive. I get it. So they probably shouldn't switch it, but that was a little weird to me. They announced the Raw Women's title match for the same show as Charlotte and Ronda. Did they want it to get overshadowed by... Do they want Ronda and Charlotte to get overshadowed by Becky and Bianca? Like, I don't get it. His second question, with the 10-year anniversary of WrestleMania 28 just a month away, actually a month away from today exactly, actually, do you think the event has aged well or poorly, and why? John and I just discussed this on Twitter last night because I put out a question ranking the top, not the top, but like the last 10 WrestleManias from 2012 through 2021. And that article will be out tomorrow, by the way, on Bleacher Report for those curious. But we were talking about 28, and he said he just reviewed it. I don't know if his video is public or not on the channel. I haven't seen it yet. But he just gave me his, 2 cents, his thoughts on the show. I think he basically said what I thought in that the top matches delivered, the atmosphere was amazing, the undercard match, some matches sucked, which I agree with. I mean, it was far from an amazing show. I'll give my abridged version here. I love WrestleMania 28 for a few different reasons. I love the atmosphere. I wasn't there, although I wish I could have gone there. It felt like a big WrestleMania. The crowd was hot. It wasn't an overly long show. Obviously, the main event was one of, if not the biggest of all time, between Rock and John Cena. Had been built up over a year. I thought a lot of the matches on that show were built up very, very well. The show is really about the top matches. Cena and Rock had a great build, and they delivered. I thought it was a very good match, and Rock winning was great. I was very happy to see that. The end of an era match was my favorite match in the whole show. I thought the match was amazing. One of my favorite Taker matches period, ever. I thought the match was fantastic. From a storytelling standpoint, it was awesome. Shawn Michaels' involvement, Hell in a Cell, it was just great. The build was great. The build of Jericho and Punk was also very, very good. And they weren't in the main event, and it probably wouldn't have been the most amazing main event anyway. But even that, from a wrestling standpoint, from an in-ring standpoint, was great. Like, they got the storytelling in the Taker Triple H match. We got the spectacle from the Cena Rock match. And we got the wrestling from Punk and Jericho. Sheamus and Bryan going 18 seconds was disappointing, of course. That was a bummer. It was a moment. I mean, Sheamus won the world title. It was a moment, at least. Kane and Randy actually had a pretty decent undercard match, I remember. The women's match sucked. Maria Menounos tried, but that match really was not WrestleMania worthy at all. I don't really know why they didn't do a Divas title match that year. I'm trying to remember what else was on that show. I can't remember off the top of my head right now. I mean, they had that Team Teddy, Team fucking Johnny match that no one really gave a shit about. That was completely whatever. They had the Tyrus or Brodus Clay and the Funkadactyls come out and do their dance, which I didn't mind at the time. I don't even remember what else was on the show in the undercard. Cody and Big Show was a fucking waste. I thought that was trash. Big Show beating Cody, and Cody was champion for a long time. I was not a fan of that at all. I thought that was stupid. They didn't have a tag team title match on the main show. They didn't do a U.S. championship match, I don't think. So, it was a lot of, like, bigger matches. Yeah, the undercard was not great. The bigger matches delivered, and that to me is more so what a Mania is about. If the main matches is really what people are going to go back and watch, that to me is really what depends on a great Mania and the crowd and the build. The show had a great build. I was overly happy with it when it ended, and the main matches delivered. So I love WrestleMania 28. It's one of my favorites ever. I think it was my number one for a long time. Mania 31 is probably my top favorite, and I've been to 3, and none of them are 31. I was at 33, 35, and 37, and every 2 years, actually. And those were all good to great shows. I just think that 28 was better than them all, and 31 is still my favorite ever, I think. I mean, I wasn't around for 17, and 17 is an amazing show, don't get me wrong. My personal favorite that I was a fan for has got to be 31. 31 was just fantastic. But 28 was a great show as well. So, yeah, I think it holds up. It's been a decade, which you're making me feel old, John, but just saying that. But it was a great show, and I think it still holds up. And after us talking about it here and on Twitter yesterday, makes me want to go back and rewatch it before WrestleMania this year. Let's see. His third question. So Revolution sure is shaping up to be an interesting card. As far as the TBS title match goes, do you think Ty Conti can get a good or even acceptable match out of Jade Cargill? I think so. Like, I'm in the middle on Jade. I don't think she's this, people praising her, oh, those matches were so good. I have yet to see anything really resembling a very good Jade Cargill match, and I'm not surprised because she's still very new. She's only been wrestling for about a year or so. I mean, I think she debuted almost exactly a year ago in that intergender tag team match on Dynamite with Shaq, Cody, and Red Velvet, which was way better than it had any right to be. She's had some decent matches, like the match with Ruby Soho, I didn't think was all that good. I didn't think the match with Thunder Rosa was all that great either on Dynamite right before that. Some of her recent title defenses, I mean, the one with Aqua was very awkward, no pun intended, I guess. Or not Aqua, her name is AQA. That one wasn't great. The Bunny match was actually better than I thought it would be. A lot of smoke and mirrors, but I mean, that's the Jade Cargill way for you right now. She's getting better. She has improved. She's not awful. I'm fine with her as champion because she is going to be a very valuable asset to them if she's not already. She looks like a star. She can talk. She's getting better as a talker, and she's improving. It's not like she's not improving. So that's why I don't think, her reign's, it's been a bust. Like, get the belt off of her. Like, no, she's over. People, like her, hate her, whatever. She gets a reaction. Her matches aren't the dirt worst. They're definitely not great. Most of them are fairly mediocre. But again, that's just her experience level. I said from the get-go, she really should not have won the TBS title. I just don't think she was ready for it. I know they want to maintain the undefeated streak or whatever, I guess, but her matches just aren't on that level yet. Ty Conti's very good. So I'm hoping that her and Ty's over enough to where people will be into the match regardless. Like, listen, if the Bunny and Jade Cargill can have a decent match on Dynamite last week, in my opinion, then I think her and Ty can have a very good match from their standards, from the standards of a Jade Cargill match. So, I mean, it ended up could being bad. I'm not saying don't get your hopes up super, super high. I'm not saying, expect greatness from these two. But I think it can be a pretty good match if they structure it well and they keep the botches to a minimum and it's not awkward and they have decent in-ring chemistry. I think it could be a decent match. So I'm not saying Jade is the dirt worst in the ring. I don't think she's great either. I think she's somewhere in the middle and she's getting better, which is good. But we'll see how she delivers on the pay-per-view stage again. I was going to say, has she been on a pay-per-view yet? This is her first singles match on pay-per-view, I think. I don't think she wrestled at Full Gear. She didn't wrestle Full Gear, and she wrestled it all out in the Casino Women's Battle Royal, but that wasn't a singles match. So we'll see how she does on the main stage come Sunday. At E13A, Emmanuel's first question was, how familiar are you with the Codyverse, quote-unquote, term referring to Cody Rhodes' storylines in AEW? I ask because Kenny Omega actually used Codyverse in a WON interview, a Wrestling Observer newsletter interview with Dave Meltzer, to describe how Cody was doing his own thing on AEW separate from everyone else. Yeah, I've heard the term. I heard excerpts from that Kenny Omega interview. I read excerpts from that Kenny Omega interview. He was not burying Cody as some people like to think that he was, which is weird that people are even thinking that based off what he said. And he wasn't wrong. I mean, he is 100% correct when he says that Cody has a different vision or had a different vision for AEW than what they did. That's not the wrong thing to say. It's the truth, and it's not even derogatory either. It's just the truth. And same thing with that. Cody was in his own little Codyverse. We've been saying this for at least a year and a half now. Everything that Cody did in AEW was completely separate from everyone else. The get-go, not so much. He did interact with the Elite and people like that early on. I would say it kind of started after the MJF feud. That was in a universe of its own, but at least it was good. He was doing the TNT title thing for a while, and that was great. I thought his TNT title runs in 2020 were great. It was really after he lost the belt the second time to Darby Allin that it kind of was like, what the fuck is he doing? Like, the Shaq stuff was random. That was in a universe all of its own. The QT Marshall stuff that went on for way longer than it should have been. Anthony Ogogo, that shit was in a universe all of its own. Completely fucking random. From a storyline standpoint, why wouldn't Cody confront Kenny Omega over him turning heel? That made no sense to me. And Cody not getting invited. Listen, even if Cody can't challenge for the World Championship, you still could have played off of that. The Bucks and Omega, who are fellow EVPs, and he's been very close with for years, even though he's technically not in the Elite anymore, he's good friends with these people, so shouldn't he take exception to their actions a lot like Adam Page did? I'm not saying he should have faced Kenny for the title, although I do think he would have if they not done that dumb stipulation where he can't challenge for the championship. Cody and Kenny would have been a great pay-per-view main event. I think they're actually split 1 win apiece. Cody beat him at Super Card of Honor about 4 years ago, and then Omega beat him to retain the IWGP Heavyweight Championship at one of the New Japan shows later on in the summer. So I think they're tied 1 win apiece. And they never had that rubber match, and probably never will at this point. But you could have told that story. You could have told that story, and they just didn't want to do it for whatever reason. So, I don't know, man. Kenny Omega's 100% right, because everything Cody did was in a universe all of its own that didn't affect anything else. And it would be one thing if it was good, like the MJF stuff. It wasn't even fucking good. It felt like he was just trying to get his own people over, and almost none of it worked. The Shaq stuff got Jade over, I guess, but the feud was all over the place and was just beyond random and not good. What else did he do? The QT stuff and the Anthony Ogogo shit was just terrible. Malachi Black was good. He was in a universe all of its own with that, and he did interact with Pac and Andrade a little bit. And I don't know, Cody went over in the end. That kind of seems pointless in retrospect, but the feud did get Malachi off to a good start. Got him off to a good start in AEW, Malachi Black, that is. The Andrade match was completely fucking random. The Sammy stuff I just had no interest in, so although the latter match was great, I completely agree with Kenny, and he's not going to get away with that shit in WWE. He's going to have no creative control, I would imagine, if he goes there. He's going to have to suck it up and do what he's told. Cody seems to me, he has some decent ideas. When he has good ideas, they're great. When he has bad ideas, they're awful. And I feel like someone like that needs to be kept in check. Someone like that, even though he said literally word for word, I cannot take creative control anymore. He's going to fucking have to. He goes back to WWE. He's someone that needs direction. Because if they just give him all the creative freedom like he had in AEW, some of the stuff he's going to do is going to be fucking terrible. And at least with Brandy Rhodes and the Nightmare Collective shit, at least they had enough wherewithal to know, listen, this isn't working, let's pull the plug on it. Cody, they never pulled the plug on it. He feuded with QT Marshall for 4 fucking months. I mean, what the fuck? The feud went nowhere. It benefited nobody. The matches weren't that good. It was a complete waste of time. So hopefully in WWE, say what you will about them burying people, which is 100% correct, and mishandling people. At least with Cody, he's a guy, if they can push him properly, but also keep him in check, he can be a star. He didn't have that much creative control in Ring of Honor, and he had a great run over there. So I think that's kind of what we need to see more from Cody Rhodes, where he's not given all this creative freedom. Because listen, you say to yourself, oh, it would be great if everyone had creative freedom. I wouldn't be too sure about that. Some people have some pretty bad ideas. The Nikki Ash shit was terrible. That was Nikki's idea. Good for her for getting that over with management. The character sucked. She's a loser now. It's fucking terrible. So Let's not get all bent out of shape, or let's not focus too much on, everyone needs creative control. No, they don't. Some people have pretty bad ideas that should be kept on the shelf. They need someone in charge that actually knows what good ideas are and will give these people good ideas if they don't have any good ideas themselves. That's what they need. Vince is not that guy. Triple H sounds like he could be. People in other companies are. Tony Khan just gave Cody way too much creative freedom because he was a fucking EVP, so I get it, but it just didn't work out. So hopefully if he goes back to WWE, they use him properly, but they don't give him too much creative freedom to where he's doing his own shit in the Codyverse every week, because that shit got bad towards the end there. His second question, how do you feel about the CG special effects that WWE does for entrances? I think it's cool. Some of them are very hokey, like the Big Time Bex one looks silly. You included images in your tweet of like the Roman Reigns one, the Bobby Lashley one, the Big Time Bex one. You know, some are better than others. Some of them are just silly. Like the Roman, like, ooh, ah, like, or they had the dog for a while. The dog thing was fucking stupid. That was really dumb. I know he's the big dog, but to have an actual dog, like, I don't know, it was just silly. And it wasn't an actual dog, but it was a CGI dog. Very dumb. But some of them look cool. The Bobby Lashley one looks cool. Like, if they can do it when it actually matters and not for everyone, and they make the graphics look cool. Like, the Big Time Bex one looks very odd to me. It looks very creepy, in my opinion. Whoever designed that didn't do the greatest job, I don't think. I know someone, my girlfriend does this stuff all the time. She does this stuff constantly, where she would, I think I would rather see her designs on the show than some of the stuff that WWE does. But listen, I'm all for adding special effects and making it look cool. Some of them aren't great, but some of them are fine. So I'm not going to sit here and shit on all of them, because some of them are pretty cool, like Bobby Lashley's. They could tone it back on some of them. Some of them they go overboard with, and that's just the WWE way, so I'm not surprised. Thoughts on Randy Orton was his last question. Very generic question, open-ended question, but, I like Randy Orton. I've always liked Randy Orton. I've always been a big fan of Orton. Currently, you didn't say, like, thoughts on Orton's current run or whatever, but I think Orton is more entertaining now than he is honestly has ever been in his entire career. I'm saying entertaining. I'm not saying better or better wrestler or better talker, better storylines. More entertaining. Cody too, but Orton has been very robotic for the longest time, and that might be his own choice. Like, he doesn't want to show much personality. He's very, he doesn't want to show any vulnerability, whatever. He did show he did open up a little bit when he was a babyface back in 2010, 2011. That was probably the last really entertaining run that Randy Orton had. He's had a couple of good runs over the years. The one in 2015 when he was a babyface was nice. When he turned face again, that match at 31 with Rollins, I loved. That finish was amazing. I love the build to it as well for the most part. So, I don't know. I think Orton's doing some of his best career work right now, to be honest with you. And he's had some great runs as a heel. The stuff with Edge in 2020 was phenomenal. When he was a heel and just turned on Edge, that was fantastic. When he turned heel in 2018 and did some of the stuff with Jeff and with Ray and AJ, that was a very underrated run, I think. Obviously, the 09 stuff with Triple H, the matches weren't great, but the character work was awesome. The Age of Orton from 07 to 08 was great. Some of the Randy Orton stuff from 04 was fantastic when he was the Legend Killer. A lot of great Orton runs. The 05 heel turn on Taker and Stacy Keibler was fantastic. Orton has had some amazing runs over the last 20 years, and it's wild to think he's been here consistently for 2 decades, but that's what it is. And I'm really enjoying Randy Orton right now. I think I wouldn't be opposed to him turning on Riddle and then kicking off that feud and Orton going back to being a heel. But another part of me is like, listen, let's just let this play out for as long as possible and just squeeze every inch of life out of it that you can. Which I said earlier, WWE tend to do sometimes. But with this, I think you should. They're making a lot of money. They're over. Why ruin that? For what? Unless Riddle's going to go on and have this big singles run, then I wouldn't do it. If he is, and they have bigger things planned for him, like Team Hell No. Team Hell No was very entertaining. But it got to a point where it was evident that Bryan was bound for bigger things on his own, so they broke up the team. But then he went on to win the WWE title. So that's the thing. Like, if you're going to break up the team, Orton probably shouldn't go back to being a world champion. I really do not want to see Orton have another title run unless it, like, really means something. The last one was, like, 3 weeks. Like, what's the fucking point? You know what I mean? I don't really need to see Orton as champion or competing for a championship. I thought the stuff with Drew in 2020 was also very good. But Riddle is the one they would need to push. They need to make him less of a goof and make him more serious. And if they could do that beyond the Orton tag team, then I'm sold on it. But otherwise, I would just keep him as a tag team for right now. At Tong the Chong with the last question of the day from Twitter. To honor the upcoming release of WWE 2K20 next week, What is your all-time favorite wrestling video game and why? Great question to end on. I have been following the 2K22 updates as far as the GM mode stuff. I talked about that last week. The roster, they did the full roster reveal, which I'm largely impressed with. I love that Regal got on there as a regular playable character. I think that's great. Some of the other roster people on there, some of the people they kept, even though they were released, I like. I appreciate that. We'll see how that game is. I'm looking forward to playing that. I don't know if I'll get it immediately or wait on it. I don't know. Maybe I'll get it from Amazon. I don't even know if you can buy the video games from Amazon. But if you could, I think I have a gift card. I might be able to pick up one of those games. But anyway, favorite wrestling video game of all time. Now, I know I've answered this before. I know I've gone off on this before, but my number one would probably... So I have three. I have three. My number one would have to be SVR 07 because I've played that so much, infrequently, but I've played that game specifically, like you're probably thinking to yourself, why that game? Specifically for GM mode. I think GM mode in that game is better than it is in 06 because there's more flexibility there. And it's better than in 08 because I think 07 has a better roster. And again, there's more flexibility because it's structured a little bit differently in 08. 08 has some good people in the roster, though, to use in GM mode. But, 07, so I got that game. I started watching wrestling in 08. A lot of people know that. I got 07 for the first time after seeing a friend play it. Maybe in 09, I think I played it for the first time. 2008 was the first WWE game I ever owned. I bought that or got that as a gift for my birthday a couple of months after I started watching wrestling, like very soon after, and fell in love with that game for the Wii. I got 09 after that and played that game, really enjoyed it. 08 might be among one of my favorite games as well, just for the nostalgia alone. The soundtrack is amazing, probably my favorite soundtrack. Just for the nostalgia alone of growing up on that game, I'd probably say 08 as well. That might be an honorable mention. But yeah, I got 07 for the first time in 09. And I played the game as the game for the first 6 months or so, but then I got into GM mode. I started GM mode in my freshman year of high school, and I played that. I played SVR 07 GM mode. Man, I moved in 2010. I played it through that. I moved houses 2 or 3 times around that period. I moved a lot, and I played it all the time in all these different houses. I played it when I was all throughout high school. Played it all throughout high school. Had my own little GM mode I would play with a friend infrequently throughout high school. I even played it in college. I started at my own GM mode in freshman year. I think I didn't really play it as much sophomore year of college, but I did play it a lot freshman year, especially when I had my own dorm. I could do my own thing. I started at my own GM mode, and it was a lot of fun. I continued it through sophomore year of college, and then I kind of fell out of it a little bit. Still played on occasion with one of my buddies at the time, and we went on and off with it. But then I didn't get back into it until, because my PS2 broke. The PS2 broke, the game didn't work, so I had to get a whole new system. 2020, in the midst of the pandemic, I'm like, I really want to play SVR 07 again. I'm really antsy for SVR 07 GM mode right now. And I may have told the story before, but I went out and bought the PS2 at this local, I did my research. I asked people, what's the best place in the state here in Connecticut to go get old games? They told me somewhere. I went there. I called them. They didn't have one. They ordered one. They had one sent to them a day or two before. I bought it. It was $100. Greatest purchase I've made in a while. It sounds silly, but I've gotten so much usage out of that because I got the game, and the game didn't work at first, and then the system didn't work or whatever. So it took me 2 or 3 times going back and forth to this place, and they were very welcoming, and they helped me out a lot without the game not working and giving me a new one and all this other shit. And it finally worked, and Alexis and I have been playing SVR 07 GM mode on that ever since, and that was in November of 2020. So it's been almost a year and a half that we've been playing GM mode on there. I'll be playing GM mode on the new game as well. But 07, man, I've done at least 3 or 4 iterations of GM mode in that game over the last 10, 15 years, and that one just never gets old. So 07 is my number 1. My number 2 and 3, it's funny because before I started watching wrestling in 08, I was already playing the WCW Nitro Revenge game. What is it? The WCW Nitro NWO Revenge. I forget exactly what the title is. It was for the N64. I was already playing that game well before I became a wrestling fan, years before. Because my grandmother, I don't know if she still does or if my cousins took it or not, but another cousin of mine, very nice guy, he actually interviewed me for a class that he teaches now. He owned an N64. and he brought it over to my grandmother's house because I guess he probably outgrew it. Like, he probably put it there in the early 2000s. And he left it in my grandmother's basement for the longest. Like, it was probably there for a good 2 decades, like 20 years. It was there for a very long time. And I don't think it's there anymore, though. And it still worked. It still worked. And it may not now. I haven't played it in a while, but it still worked for the longest time. And on that game, because he was a wrestling fan, he grew up in the Attitude Era. He's probably about 5-10 years older than me. He had WCW NWO Revenge. So my brother and I, not even being wrestling fans back then, would play that constantly. We loved the game. I would play as Sting with the Bad, and that was a really fun game. We would do the only match type that we would do was Royal Rumbles, because that was just the most fun thing to do. And we always did the Rumbles. That was always a fun time. And then when I actually got into wrestling, and I knew the rosters a little bit better, I started playing No Mercy, because he had No Mercy there with the other games, but for whatever reason, we just never played No Mercy. We just knew WCW NWO Revenge. So before I started watching wrestling, that was the only wrestling game that we would play. But later did I find out he actually had No Mercy as well. Diggity dog. And we would play that constantly. And I haven't recently, because again, I don't think the system's at my grandmother's house anymore. But it was there for the longest time. Every time we'd go visit my grandmother, my brother and I would sneak downstairs after saying hi to my grandmother. Hi, Barbara. We'd go downstairs, and then we'd play the game for a while. And I just fucking love No Mercy. We would do Rumbles in that game too, but we could also do Triple Threats. We would have fun with it. I played that for a good probably 10 years on and off. Anytime we'd visit her house, we'd always play that game. It was such a good game. So my top 3 favorite games of all time, long answer, made short here, would be in no particular order, but probably SVR07 at number 1, and then WCW NWO Revenge, and then No Mercy. Both on the N64 and SVR07 on the PS2. Honorable mentions, like I said, 08 I grew up on. That was the first WWE game I technically owned for the Wii. And the Wii games were awful because the Wii games were very limited. But, they were fun, though. 08 is an honorable mention. I enjoyed the roster in that game. Just a lot of fond memories playing that. I played 09. I played the shit out of 09. Didn't play the subsequent games a lot, but I did enjoy playing 2010, 2011, 2012. 2012, I remember being a good game, WWE 12. That was in between 2K and the SVR series. But I enjoyed that. WWE 12 was a good game. Again, the subsequent games I didn't love. They were all right. A lot of the 2K games I really haven't played a lot of to say they're my favorite, because I'll play them for a little while and then just get busy and not have a chance to play them. I will be buying 2K22, though, for sure. None of the real recent games struck me as my favorite in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years. But I did get for my birthday, my 16th birthday, I think, back in 2011, I got All-Stars as a gift. WWE All-Stars was a great game. Very fun game. Way more fun than it had any right to be. I really enjoyed All-Stars. And I didn't end up getting Battlegrounds or whatever it's called. I came out with that a couple of years ago. I didn't get that. My girlfriend's brother did. Alexis's brother did. I never played it. But All-Stars was a lot of fun. I actually brought that to college with me, and some of my roommates and buddies on my dorm room floor would play with me. RJ can attest. I don't know if RJ was ever there when I played All-Stars, but his buddy Cam may have. I'm not sure. He definitely did play Mario Kart with me in Super Smash Bros. What was it, Brawl or whatever? He did play those, but anyway. Yeah, All-Stars was another good one. I did own Legends of WrestleMania that came out in like 09 or 08. My younger brother played that more than I did, but that was a good game as well. And those are probably the biggest ones. I'd probably would say No Mercy. Like I said, NWO, WCW, Revenge, 07, 08, and All-Stars. Those would probably be my top 5. If not WWE 12, somewhere in there as well. Those would probably... I enjoyed 06 as well. 06 is a good game. I like 06. I just got more usage out of the other games, so... I'm sorry I went so long for that answer, but I'm really passionate about some of the wrestling video games, which is why I'm looking forward to this next one, and hopefully GM mode is okay. I've heard it's not the greatest, and we talked about that last week, but it's better than nothing, I guess, right? It's better than nothing, and I'm looking forward to playing more of it, and might be playing some SVR07 GM mode very soon. And I would love to stream it here on the channel is the thing. I would love to stream myself and Alexis as well, playing the games on the channel. I just don't know how to do it, and I don't have the technology to do it, so I don't think I will. I would love to, though. To get input from you guys as we're booking shows and matches and storylines, I think that'd be a lot of fun. But I don't know. It's a lot to figure out for someone like me who's not technology technology, or what's the word? Technologically advanced. There we go. Technologically advanced. It's a little bit more difficult for me. But at any rate, guys, thank you so much for checking out the show. I appreciate it. This has been 431 for Wednesday, March 2nd, 2022. Thank you, as always, for checking out the show. I appreciate it. Be sure to tweet me on the Twitter machine with more questions at WrestleRant, the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well, facebook.com/Graham.gsm.Matthews. Leave a question or a comment on the post that I usually put up on Wednesday nights, or Tuesday nights, rather. What am I saying? If not on the wall itself. And last but certainly not least, drop your question down below in the comment section on this very video, and I'll include your question in next week's edition. Have a great rest of your week, guys. Enjoy your month of March. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch your ass down the road.